11 miles.
That's a problem.
Yeah.
There you go. You should be taking pictures for Tequilas marketing.
25 miles.
It's 11 miles.
Yeah, with chilaquiles dripping off his chin, that'd be good.
Right?
So good.
4 minutes to go.
Yeah, Costco where we were, it was about an hour and a half away, so.
Sure. Well, I
saw him driving through the park yesterday.
You look too serious. Yeah, that is
did in
serious.
Phoenix and
I
I
was
was a
gonna
small
flag
time
him down
I
and
ran out
and
of here.
ask for some, because I got the feeling that you're better off with it than without it.
Is that better?
Get out of my way.
That's what
Question.
I don't want to stop.
No hams.
But you don't have
Do you have potholes?
No.
It depends on the applicant. This is me introducing the new drug emporium here in town. I'm Dr. Simi.
You weren't fat enough.
It's
I'm not
breakfast.
fat
I haven't finished
Give
my
me
coffee.
time.
These are perfectly legitimate answers. I understand. I'll be back.
Oh, good. I can't wait.
Oh, I missed it.
Apparently not. They
Adios.
searched around and found that the only place they could have done it.
And travel.
Yeah,
Dr.
why
Simi
is
isn't
it?
very health conscious. is he?
He's fairly overweight, isn't he? You expect to see him around the corner smoking cigarettes.
It's a little bit lighter than the Michelin.
Yeah, right.
Valley, Tucson area is.
Of course, the Michelin Man's supposed to be selling extra tires.
You still have, so they're not.
Extra cushion.
they're
That's
not
right.
on- and then they're on-
Okay, well, it looks like
You won't know it if you leave out.
Oh, you're
all that's working.
You never know. I mean,
What's the latest
2
rumor?
minutes to go.
Oh. I'm
What's the
sorry.
latest rumor in town?
It wouldn't be
What's
so
happening?
bad in the
But
summer.
you're gonna spend some money.
So bad.
No.
Nobody would believe that.
Of course.
A lot of people are talking about the Mormons.
Yeah. Have you heard about that?
Oh, yeah.
That
What have you
is.
heard?
We don't have.
They were
What
more
have I heard? The latest was a pretty comprehensive news report.
So last year, we bought a
About
mini
it,
split
and,
and took it back.
You saw the BBC report on
I
it?
think so, yeah.
Yeah.
We have to run.
They came down so they could
But
have multiple
I cannot see
wives.
in a-
Yeah, well, that was years ago, but,
I like
What are they gonna do when they go back with all these wives?
well, there's places, Colorado City has,
Really?
has that. And I met a
But we
polygamist
lived in
in
San Jose,
Utah,
California,
and
and that was perfect. We
near,
sailed San Francisco
there's a
Bay.
town
Arches
Arizona.
National Park.
I mean, it was
Yeah,
close.
the one that used to live.
It was funny, you know, we went to
Went
his
to
This
Vegas.
is it, you know, I don't wanna deal with it.
establishment there.
Yeah,
What do you,
like-
there was a mesa, you know how they have, these mesas stand alone,
I keep
and there
getting
was
approached
a
to
layer,
their
the
website.
ground layer was soft rock,
Sell in the US.
covered with hard rock.
I don't wanna deal
And
with
he
it.
was
I've done this.
blasting into that soft rock and made rooms.
Well, Nick
Had a
said the
ho-
other
a
day,
ho- a hotel.
when we get a little money,
It was doing real good until
Commission
9/11, then people stopped
to do a
coming to it.
painting for us.
No.
We have.
So we went there and he
6
had
feet
all these
over
kids running
2 feet
around and
tall,
stuff like that.
and above it was a blank
And
space,
so
and so it was like
I
something-
asked him, "Are these yours?" And he says, "Oh yeah, these are my." He was in his 70s,
I have a whole gallery.
and he said, "Yeah." And I said, "How many
Rex
are
had
there?"
good
He
taste.
says,
I know.
"I think there's 32."
I liked what he liked, isn't it funny?
And I said,
Yeah.
32? I said,
My favorite.
"That's
though, is
amazing."
on
He
the-
says, "Well,
it's
you know, 3
yellow
wives."
pickup with the chickens
And I
and
said,
everything.
sequentially, he says, "No, I have 3 wives. One was a teacher, one was a doctor, and one was an airline pilot, I think, or stewardess anyway."
And 2 ladies just.
And so they operated out of Salt Lake City,
They're
most
both
of them,
wonderful,
but
but this one,
I guess they came down long enough to have babies.
What's it near? I'm not familiar with
it's,
it.
85
So
miles
it's kinda
southeast
influenced.
of Altoona.
Oh, okay,
Kinda like
southeast.
Alamogordo.
Well,
Yeah.
There's a lot of them. What I heard
Way
Tell us what you've heard.
Yeah,
was
yeah.
quite different.
Oh, okay. so
I heard that
Yeah, you know Socorro?
the Mormons in Mexico have been here so long, they own huge amount of property. Just
Yeah.
Yeah, we live in 30
huge.
acres and
Oh, how
down to
nice.
6.5
Kinda like a
miles
state
there.
would own.
So this feels very familiar.
And also that they're in the drug business. And the
It sounds beautiful.
It
fight
is.
between
It's
the druggies, the cartel,
It's not-
and the
would you sell
Mormons
it?
is real.
I don't think we could.
I heard there was a fight between them, but not for the reason you're talking about.
Over
It's
drugs,
in Arizona.
Yeah.
over drugs.
Drugs the hell out of here, not that.
Which
way.
is inconsistent
Yeah,
with
but it's not
what you
convenient.
understand about the
Yeah.
Mormon church.
Although,
Yeah.
For a rancher,
But,
you got 40
they-
acres, you got a
yeah.
They live
nice piece of property.
in a compound which is lush because
Yeah,
they
if somebody
tapped into the water, and
So,
there's some theory
we could
that
always live
the
here until we
cartel
decided
that's near there
what
is
to do, so it's
jealous
not
of the fact that they're using the water.
So I heard something along these lines. I heard that they've been known for going around and drilling wells and being very successful at drilling wells, and that there's properties around that area. Properties is all I heard. I mean, I imagine that could belong to drug cartels that are frustrated with them because the irrigation is all going to these endeavors they've put together. It's hard to imagine that would warrant assassinating a huge family like that, though.
Well, it wasn't the cartel,
I know,
that's
it's
their
nothing
local
like that.
cartel. They're on
So,
stable ground with the
he
local
really wants
cartel.
to
They buy their fuel
drive
from
over
them,
here and then
because
have
they're
it
told
out
to buy
car
their
here,
fuel
which
from
should be
them.
fine.
Yeah, well.
Okay.
Thank you.
But it was a different cartel, it was the
Miles the
Sinaloa
other.
cartel.
Uh-huh.
Hey, we
Or
So we may end up
Chihuahua
taking her back.
cartel that did the assassination.
But they're fixing their cars.
it's
I've heard that
nuts.
from about 4
Hey.
different
Is she
sources.
okay?
We should have started 2 minutes ago, so I'm just going to
Believe it.
quickly introduce us as the San Carlos Computer Club. We meet every Tuesday at 9:15 to 10:15ish. Start a little late sometimes, hardly ever early. Run a little late most of the time. Here at Tequilas, anybody's welcome to come join us if they'd like. If you have any interest in tech topics, just sitting at our table makes you one of our members. If you can't make it, please look for us online live like we are now at our YouTube channel, youtube.scclub.org, or look at our website at scclub.org. Again, I'm Scott Stimson from International Computer Solutions. Hopefully your resident computer expert here, willing to answer any of the questions you might have that I can't answer.
And more.
And more. And we're just talking about assassinations in Mexico, waiting for the tech angle. I think the biggest tech angle is we found out about it on Facebook, most of us. As per usual, I've got some topics with me, but I'd be very happy to answer any questions or hear any topics you guys have brought with you. Go! Has anybody got anything they'd like to contribute right off the bat?
Sure.
Go, Bob.
I was reading an article about anti-teching.
Anti-tech.
Well,
Anti-teching.
the Luddites.
And how people are going back to flip phones and getting away from smartphones
Texting.
and getting away from everything that smartphones do.
That doesn't sound so smart.
Actually, it's interesting that you say that, Bob. I just this morning, and I didn't put it in my feed for today, but just this morning I read an article about it was. I think it was from Digital Trends. I see even that I'd have to double check, but the whole article was based on how happy they were to go back to a dumb phone. I mean, this is a tech person
Right.
proclaiming how happy they were to go back to a Dia and those low income markets. And it's a phone and an operating system that's all based in HTML5. And the idea is that you have a limited feature set. You can't waste a lot of time with it. But what was interesting is they were able to do the things they needed their phone to do and didn't miss the things they were using their phone for. And what I was impressed with, and I had to get it out of a different article, is this phone. They're calling it the banana phone because they're selling it as a yellow phone. But what you're describing is it's one of those dumb phones. There's flip phones now that are coming out. The Nokia is not the only one, but it's recognizable because it's a banana color. It's the one they're marketing. And it's got a keyboard cover that flips out. You flip it out and you can make your phone call. You can send text messages from a hard keyboard. But it's sophisticated enough that it has an app store and it has apps already that have been... So he was able to do WhatsApp through it, Facebook through it, not to the extent that you're immersed into this computer experience, but to the extent of necessity. Like, that's all I needed to do. Now I can put it back in my pocket and go on with my life instead of getting caught up in the tech itself.
Does that mean you could go in your drawer and find that old phone that you bought in 2008?
Not quite, but these new phones are definitely phones that are way under $100 a piece. And one of the things that I was getting at was one of the things I was impressed by it is that it supports a hotspot. So this gets closer to that idea I think you've heard me talk about before, where you will have a small communications device with you. You wouldn't even consider trying to look at it to do any real computer work, but it might be voice activated. They already have Google Assistant for this phone ready to go. So I can imagine that very quickly you'll be able to tell the phone to do things for you. Like, I'm going to go home, show me the map, because it's got mapping on it. But then you can, right, well, it's not that small of a screen, but it is a much smaller screen. But then you can turn on a hotspot. And so you can carry a tablet around for any real computer stuff that you might have to do. So you can keep the tablet in the car, keep the candy bar-sized phone in your pocket, function 90% of the time with a candy bar-sized phone, and when you have to actually go write emails or check what's the weather or whatever.
For emergencies.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Ray
Be
has
good
a
for
great
kids
story.
too, the first one.
Well, and if it follows the suit, it should have a much longer battery life because there's so much less that it has to do. So much less. There's so few things that it actually has to do.
Is it directly related? Battery life is directly related to the number of apps?
Well, it could, but it's really, I mean, apps get related to processor power and speed and capacity. Mm-hmm. As you go up, you require more of everything. Mm-hmm. And so that includes battery.
They were talking about phones that didn't have apps too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So this is fairly interesting as far as what we're going to get is a sophisticated version of a dumb phone. We're going to have this little phone that's going to have you're going to be able to shoot off a picture with it, and you're going to be able to make phone calls with it and do basic text messaging with it. And when you need it, you're going to be able to turn on a hotspot, and then that'll power your internet connection for a second device that you might
Dick
be carrying
Tracy
around.
phone?
Well, now you're getting at the Apple Watch. Hey, you know, what I've forgotten to mention at the top of our meeting is that today is Disney Plus Day. Did you guys know that? Today is the 12th of November, which means Disney Plus has rolled out their new streaming service. This is priced competitively. They're looking at $6.99 a month. You get Disney, you get Marvel, you get Star Wars, you get National Geographics, all those Disney, Fox. You know, they own Fox now, so you get all those movies. They've got a whole slew of new content coming out. They announced like dozens of shows that are coming out on this new. It's going to be, $6.99 is pretty cheap, but you can also get it for $69.99 for the year. So you basically buy a year of it and get 2 months free. If you want to price compare that, Netflix is like around $9 a month, up to about $13 a month, depending on which plan you've got with Netflix.
Mine's 17,
Yours is 17?
but it's Canadian.
Okay, I'm talking in American dollars. If you want a Canadian price, though, I wrote that down. It's $8.99 a month for Disney in Canadian, or it's $89.99 a year.
Compared
Do you
to
need a
6.
DNS proxy
Yeah.
to see it?
This is called Disney
Now,
what?
I knew somebody was going to ask me that. So I did some research this morning, and if you go to DNS Proxy's Twitter account, they have a blanket statement saying, "We're working on it. We realize it's one of the most important things our customers want to have access to, and it's our highest priority right now." So to answer your question, no.
What was your question?
If it would work with Smart DNS Proxy. And it absolutely will not at this moment. Who knows by midnight tonight? But
if you
at
don't
this
need
moment,
it,
it's
it
not.
doesn't.
What?
If you can see the content without it, it doesn't matter.
Right. And that actually brings the other point. They rolled it out this morning. They clicked it on, and people started immediately having problems with it. So Disney Plus is supposed to be available all throughout the United States today. They have immediately backed off on that and said places like Puerto Rico and Canada may be waiting until the 19th. I was a little offended, because you always feel like people forget Puerto Rico is part of the United States. Apparently Disney did as well. But they had guaranteed it to Puerto Rico on the 12th, and now they've backed away from that. This Disney Channel, it is going to be available on all the major platforms. So if you have an Apple TV, Apple device like an iPhone, iPad, an iPod as well, an iPod Touch, Android TVs, your Android devices are all going to support this. All the big ones, Google Chromecast, and TVs that have the Chromecast integrated, Roku, the Roku TVs, like the TLC TVs that have Roku as its base. These are all this stuff's PlayStation 4 and Xbox One. All the major streaming devices right now are going to support this. So I suspect within a month we will probably have stories of whether this works or not with Smart DNS, with VPN Express, or one of these VPN service providers.
So it's going to mimic cable? Just
No.
content too?
If anything, it would mimic Netflix. They also have special pricing for bundles. If you were to get ESPN and some hodgepodge of other services, it's $12.99 a month.
Other services that you don't really want.
I said a hodgepodge because I can't remember what I read.
Probably Fox.
Yeah.
In fact, let
All
me.
that stuff.
So what do you get for the $6.99?
You get the Disney catalog and all the content that Disney owns. That is still that they haven't licensed away yet.
Including Fox?
Yeah, that's my understanding. So you got the Fox movies, you got the Miramax movies, you got the TriStar movies. So
This might just really wipe out Netflix.
I think this is the one that's going to win in the long run. I think that starting out, they're a great competitor to Netflix, and I don't think Netflix has an offering. Netflix has been gearing up for a long time because they knew this was coming, and so they've put a lot of money into original content, but it hasn't paid off. I mean, it hasn't. They haven't seen the draw from those programs, those original programs. They're good, but they're not making purchasing decisions for people. At the same time, Netflix is kind of a staple. If they'd stop raising the price on it, I don't think people would cancel it. I think the only thing that's questioning whether you should cancel Netflix is they keep raising the price on it.
Well, I get two versions free because of T-Mobile gives you Netflix free and Cox gives you Netflix free.
I think that kind of bundling is definitely going to keep it around for a long time. And actually, Disney Plus is being bundled with Verizon. So you can get a year of Disney Plus for free if you're a Verizon customer.
Now, the Disney classic movies have always been held back from the public and very
In a vault.
occasionally released.
Yeah.
Are those going to be available? Bambi and Song of the South? Probably not Song of the South.
I've listened to some speculation on it. I don't have a definite answer on that. But if from what I've heard, I bet they're all available today. And then we're going to go through cycles where they will be pulled off the service for a period of time. And if it was pulled, and like I would imagine, I mean, this is all speculation, but I would imagine we're going to see a cycle where the Bambi movie isn't available on streaming anywhere, but you can buy a Blu-ray of it, right? A special edition. I just watching the way the market works, these are the things I kind of envision would happen.
Scott, what's going on with AT&T?
They are, AT&T is now a media company. They own Warner Brothers, they own HBO.
But they keep saying that if you have a plan, they're gonna raise the price. I haven't seen that yet, so I'm kind of confused.
DirecTV, they only had.
Oh, I got rid of DirecTV. They pissed me off.
Oh, hey, just to go back on pricing, Amazon Prime for movies is $12.99. HBO Now, which is about to be released, or no, it's already been released. I'm sorry, HBO Now's been around. It's $14.99, and Disney is $6.99. And Disney by far has the largest catalog to offer customers.
But I don't watch Marvel movies. Or Disney movies.
Well, yeah, but remember, they gobbled up all these media services. I mean, they own ABC. Right? So you've got all this back catalog. The moment they're not getting the subscriptions they expect to be getting, they can just start pushing out all of this content on that. They could give ESPN away for free. I mean, that alone, people who never watch a Marvel movie would pay $6.99 because ESPN's right there.
ESPN is, isn't it? Isn't ESPN free?
ESPN?
Isn't it?
I don't think so.
Oh, really?
No.
I know
Online
ESPN
there.
Plus isn't.
I watched a good football game last night on ESPN.
Is that on?
But you're probably referring to,
Scott's Radiosity.
Oh.
and not a real service
Yeah.
provider.
And they've separated the sports from all of the other all of the regular stations, so you got to go to a different place to get all of the sports.
Wow.
What we're really looking forward to is the siloing of all this content. So we're back to almost a cable model where you pay $14.99 to have access to all this content. You pay $6.99 to have access to this content. Right? Because you're going to have... Oh, and Hulu. Hulu's part of the handful. For $12.99, you get access to ESPN and Hulu.
How is Hulu down here?
Doesn't work.
Doesn't.
Well, even if you-
Oh, this is the other thing, is
Nice
that
they throw it in as part of the deal.
this is the other thing. I went looking specifically for access in Latin America and Mexico, and they don't have a defined date when Disney Plus is going to be available in this area, which is a real slam to Latin America because Disney has always had a hand in Latin America. I can't help but think what they've done is they've licensed away their properties for a period of time that is in conflict with this release. And so they're waiting to get a majority of those rights back so that they can release with the Bambi movies, they can release with the Miramax movies, they can have them all under one umbrella, because it's just ridiculous. At first they were saying that we wouldn't be seeing it until 2021, which is like not releasing it at all. It's just like, oh yeah, of course, in 2 years we're going to have it in Mexico.
Well, CBS All Access, I signed up for it and it says not available in your area.
That's right, but you can still get Star Trek through Netflix outside of the United States. That's not what you're looking for. A lot of CBS All Access content has been licensed outside of the United States to Netflix. So you might find the content you're looking for on CBS on Netflix Mexico. Not Netflix US. You have to go to CBS in the US.
Yeah.
But Netflix in Mexico.
Through Roku, I can get Morning Joe, Rachel Maddow, and Lester, and then some other CBS stations, which are the news stations I'm interested in.
So that
And I
works.
didn't have to subscribe to that.
Well, this is the thing. As we go to this siloed model, I think that it's going to increase piracy once again. We're going to see a lot more. We're going to see a lot more of Radiosity. We're not going to see less of it. We're going to see a lot more Kodi. We're not going to see less of it. It's Streamio has been an amazing app on Windows, Macintosh, and Android. And anytime it doesn't work on Kodi for me, I go over to Streamio and it's working great.
Now, I have a 60-inch TV, so I don't really want to watch a movie on my laptop.
Well, you could, if you were basing your whole experience from the laptop, you could do stuff like Miracast or Chromecast. You could just, a little device you could plug into your 60-inch TV and just cast the screen from your laptop over to the TV set.
Well, you know, when I first heard that you could watch a movie on your smartphone, I thought, well, that's crazy, you know, it's so little. But you hold it here. If you go like this, that's like 55-inch
Right.
TV on
Oh,
the
you
wall.
need the
That's right.
You know, so you look at
The
that
toes.
dimension, so this is perfectly,
You need one of
Acceptable
those
for one person.
harmonica stands, so you can just put it right in front of your face.
I'm sure.
Except you gotta recharge the movie screen when you're finished.
and then you'd have one hand free for beer.
So
and the other
so
one
for years,
popcorn.
I would watch movies on my laptop, and I would lie on the couch and stick it on my chest, and have the screen right here, and it was like being in a movie theater. Well, I'm 49 now, and so I have to get my reading glasses to have that experience now.
Oh, man, this is young.
But his point was you hold it out here though, right?
Yeah, well, your arm gets tired.
Well,
I still need my reading
a laptop-
glasses.
A laptop on your
Oh,
lap
there you go, a
is bigger
selfie
than
stick, yeah.
what you could have on your-
I'm gonna remember that for the next time I get taken out on a fishing trip, and I can put the selfie stick right in the fishing pole, and I'll be out there on the deck just watching movies. Everybody else is fishing.
That works for me.
And you'll have a better time than they had.
I think you all need a social life.
I have another question that relates to last week.
Oh yes,
How's 13.2.2?
I haven't heard any issues. It's been blank, and I went out looking for them before this meeting, and I found nothing.
I didn't either.
So I'm thinking it might be okay to update to 13.2.
I may wait for a few days.
Yeah,
I'll wait until Monday.
that might be a good idea. They might be pushing out a point release right now, covertly.
Gray one, yeah.
Apple.
Operator.
Oh, yeah.
What good topics do you have?
You mean other than Disney Day
Got them. All four of them.
and the fact that it's already falling apart, and that they don't consider Puerto Rico part of the United States?
But they're not the
You
only
could
one.
have it.
Yeah, the president does it.
It's true, I guess.
Each other.
Hurricane?
Well, I had an interesting experience this morning with my Wi-Fi, and many of you may have a very more sophisticated Wi-Fi these days that support two different radio signals, a 2.4G signal and a 5G signal. And let me say for this conversation, every time you hear me say 5G, we're talking about Wi-Fi access points, not the new rollout of cell phone towers. We're talking about strictly in your house Wi-Fi. So every time I say 5G right now, we're talking about Wi-Fi. We're talking about the Wi-Fi over there in the corner.
Scott,
Yeah.
We were talking about mob drill and it was,
Yeah.
they're using
However,
resources. That's the
it
page
is-
that you look at.
What is it here?
Yeah.
When it
Let's
comes up.
see.
So this is just getting it set up, right?
In Greenville.
Well, it's already set up as far as I can see.
Tell
When
her
you're-
it's 7.
Yeah, it's. Anyway, what I was going to say, my wireless experience this morning, I learned some new stuff. A couple of days ago, I noticed that my Macintoshes, and they're old Macintoshes, lost the ability to connect to that 5G wireless signal. I had experienced in the past issues with Telmex Wi-Fi routers, very bizarre experiences, like the 5G just gets turned off. The 2.4 continues to run.
Yeah, it's not always accessible.
Well, in this today, it was not accessible, but in the past, I've seen it disappear. Every device on my network can't see it. I get into the router, and it's like somebody has gone in and turned it off. I've also had experiences where I could witness that. I'd be like, this is weird. What if I were to just because I'm a tech person, instead of just turning it on, I'm like, well, what if I just reboot it like a normal person? It's not working. Let's turn it off and turn it on. I've seen that both work and not work to resolve that problem. I've turned it off, waited a few seconds, plugged it back in. Miraculously, 5G came back. I've also done the same thing, and it didn't come back. When it didn't come back, I was able to go into the router's administration pages and click the button to turn it on, and it would turn on, it would come back. And I'd unplug it and plug it back in and see that it was stable, and it would come back. Just these bizarre experiences with Telmex equipment. Well, today was the most bizarre experience for me because I had noticed that this had happened a couple days ago, and I just hadn't bothered to start looking at it. And I figured it was off throughout my network, and I have all my devices set up to connect to either signal, so I figured that's the reason everything's still working, is everything's just connected 2.4, and I'll figure out the 5G thing later. I go into my back office and I notice, no, I've got equipment hooking up to the 5G. It's just my Macintoshes that don't see the 5G, which is really bizarre. And I went into the router, and sure enough, everything is turned on, everything's working. And of course it is, because my devices see it. I mean, not my phone, but my tablet sees it, and my other computers in the network
Is
see it.
5G just a bigger and better version of 4G, or is it something different?
Well, Gary, if you had not been working on your own thing, you would have heard me prefix this with every time I say 5G, I'm talking about a Wi-Fi access point. And our Wi-Fi access points right now support 2.4G and 5G.
Getting nasty in his old age.
You know what I asked?
Well, there was no 4G. There was never 4G.
Next week he's gonna have a stick.
That's right. I'm gonna go whack. Pay attention. Whack.
I've heard a lot of lies.
No, we are not talking about cell phone technology. We're talking about Wi-Fi technology, and there was never a 4G and Wi-Fi technology. And actually,
That doesn't
And we're
answer my
supposed to
question. The
know
question
that
was,
now.
is there a connection between 4G and 5G?
not in this context.
In any context?
Well, if we were talking about cell phones, absolutely. But we're not. We're talking about local Wi-Fi access.
There is a 5G cell phone,
Yes, yeah.
and it's different from 5G internet?
It's different from 5G Wi-Fi. It's completely different. In fact, to make the
Okay,
distinction,
Wi-Fi is your own little circuitry, your own.
4G
Yep.
or 5G is an adjective of the capacity of the system.
there you go. When you're talking about cell phones, you're talking about separate generations of technology. When you're talking in Wi-Fi, you're talking about different radio frequencies. And unfortunately, they have
They call them the same thing.
Yeah, unfortunately, they've used the same terminology, and that's why I clarified before I started this discussion.
If he was paying attention.
If he had been paying attention, he'd know what I was talking
We
about.
still never made the connection between why is it called 4G and why is one called 5G? What's the G
Okay,
got
you're
to do with anything?
derailing my train of thought, though.
Well, how do we get into the router?
It's not for you to know.
The point that I'm trying to get to is something that I never realized before
You
today,
have a need.
is that your Wi-Fi device that supports 5G radio can be limited to certain channels. Your device is only compatible with whatever channels were made available when the device was built. And this problem appears on my Macintoshes, not any of my other equipment. My Macintoshes are 2007 and 2011. They were incompatible. When we had Wi-Fi 802.11n, we've gone up to 802.11ac, which is where the standard is gone. In was kind of a default standard. Default being the wrong word. It was the standard that they thought we were going to, and then they standardized on AC. And if you can get an AC connection, yeah, it was before there was a standard. In was before there was a
You don't
standard.
want us paying attention, really.
I'm sorry. I'm sorry.
I'm sorry. I
Is there going to be a
confused you.
test on this?
No, not at all. The only point I was trying to get at is if you're seeing devices, because this turned out to be my router.
I was going to say, I think you need a new
Change
router.
the channel on you.
It changed the channel, and what I learned in my Telmex router is that I have no control over the channel. I have control over the 2.4G channel, but I don't have control over the 5G channel.
Because I was going to say, they had me change the channel one time when I was having a problem.
Well, and I've definitely used Telmex routers of different models where I could set a 5G channel, but on mine I cannot set a 5G channel. Now it gets even weirder because it'll tell you what channel you're on. It says I'm on 52, but I couldn't see it on any of the Macintoshes. On the Macintosh, you can go into About Macintosh, you can go into System Report, you can go under Wi-Fi. It will tell you every channel you're compatible with. 52 is right there in the list. It should be compatible. What I did was I turned off 5G, turned it back on, and that eliminated the problem for the Macintoshes. Everything else continued to work like it was before. It still says it's on 52. Telmex equipment, that's what it comes down to. Telmex equipment. I suspect that the problem would have been resolved for a normal person if they'd just taken a paper clip and hit the reset button on the router and let it go through a complete reset. It would have fixed the problem on my Macintoshes.
So I have a question.
Okay.
Can you plug a different router into the Telmex and get rid of the Telmex router and plug a different router in?
No. Yeah, not for your. Well, I mean, you can't. Jim can. That she, when she said you, she was referring to herself. I mean, yes, I can. In fact, I would ask Jim how to do it because I know he's done it.
I'm running 3 routers.
Well, but you're still using a Telmex as your bridge to the internet.
Yes.
That's right.
I turned off the Wi-Fi on the Telmex.
That's right, and that's what we had done with yours.
Yeah.
Is we had turned off all those features and used that repeater as a router.
But I need a better router.
Yeah. That's right.
Why did you do that?
Why did I turn off the Wi-Fi?
Yeah.
Because it's inferior to my routers.
Well, and it can cause
So
conflicts.
how do you get Wi-Fi?
Through my routers.
Damn it,
I'm just using the Telmex.
speak English.
To receive the signal.
I'm using the
Are we
Telmex
confusing
router.
modem and router?
Yeah.
Modem.
Yes.
It's a router modem as a modem.
The problem is we're
I
not
off the
confusing
Wi-Fi
it. They've
to-
confused
I
us
go to
because
my
they've
router,
put router, modem,
has-
switch, Wi-Fi all in the same device. So at any moment we could say any of those terms and it would be correct and we would
So
be
he's-
talking about the wrong
he's
thing.
Back up.
Keeping the
I
modem
turned off the
value.
Wi-Fi on
That's
the
right, and
Telmex
turning everything
line.
else off.
WLAN,
Yeah.
yeah.
And so,
So you have to
just plug it
hardwire to
into
a
the
router.
That's right.
to one of the
That's
ports.
right. You
You're
use
hardwired to
use
your
the Telmex
router, and it is
modem,
your
router,
Wi-Fi
wireless
and your-
switch
and everything else.
as just a modem. And then you hardwire it to the equipment you want to use.
I'm
And that
sorry?
hardwire is giving you internet. But none of the other features. And you derive all the other features
Yeah.
from whatever
And
equipment
then
you
you can hook
brought.
another router and hook
Okay,
into that one
Now
if you
that
want.
you have told
Beginning
us
to make
what
sense.
doesn't work,
Gary, I hope I didn't hurt
Yes.
your feelings. I wasn't trying to be mean.
I don't.
Go ahead. Bob, I'm going to try and hurt your feelings. Go ahead.
now that you've told us what doesn't work, tell us something about that does work.
As far as,
Well, you said that your Wi-Fi wasn't working because of the 5G, okay? And so what does work? In other words, maybe a different subject that you have?
okay.
Well, he did solve that problem by pushing the right button.
Yeah, the right buttons. Well, what I really wanted to share with you was resetting the modem would have fixed this problem. This was unique to old Macintosh technology. None of my other old technology that supports 5G was suffering from this. This is very unique to the Macintoshes not supporting whatever frequency it was on. And it wasn't fixed in the Macintosh, it was fixed in the router.
So I have a question.
The last thing that
This is a router question.
the last thing that I wanted to enlighten you on, which I was not aware of, is that your equipment can be compatible with only a small range of channels with your Wi-Fi, not a complete range, and it could be based on when your equipment was built. Those are the 3 points I was making with this.
So,
Yes.
My neighbor is arriving soon, so I go over. Her Wi-Fi and her phone were working perfectly.
Okay.
Then they of course were doing work in the park, so then I went over to check, and her Wi-Fi, or her modem, and her, not just Wi-Fi, her total internet and her phone were not working. So I put in a report in wherever it is, Hermosillo, Mexico City,
Yeah,
wherever.
a Telmex report.
The
Yeah.
050. And so then I go over yesterday and I think, well, I'm gonna unplug it all from the wall, from the power, not just pull the cords.
Yeah.
I did it all. So the modem comes up and the only light is the power light and the Wi-Fi light.
Okay. That would
That's
be
it.
standard with no DSL.
However,
Yeah.
I can connect.
Yeah.
Well, you can connect to the Wi-Fi,
You can connect to the
But how
modem.
can you,
But no internet.
but no internet.
yes.
Yeah.
So if you have internet,
internet.
what are you connecting with a cell phone?
Uh-huh.
So you might check to see that Wi-Fi Plus feature isn't enabled.
Wi-Fi Plus?
Yeah, it depends on the device that you're using, what it's called. But the idea is that you are able to bounce between Wi-Fi and cell depending on where you're getting.
So maybe
Maybe it's
not
tricking.
working.
Yeah, maybe not working, and it's switching over to the cell network.
She's gonna want that.
You could
Well, I
connect to
have
the
a-
router, and the router's not connected to the.
Well, but then the actual
You need a
DSL
D-
light flashes occasionally.
Is it random or is it
Random.
constant?
No, random.
So if it's random, that might mean that you have a connection depending on what modem you have. If it's random, it may
got
be
one
showing
of
you
those.
activity.
Little
If-
white modem like this.
If it's
old.
if it's a constant flashing, like every 5 seconds flashing, that's typically attempting to make a connection and not
No,
successfully
this is
make.
very random. You can watch it and nothing happens and then all of a sudden it'll flash on and then nothing will happen.
That sounds like a bad DSL connection.
Would you repeat what you just said
Jim,
about the
are
light
you
flashing?
doing that?
Yeah, on the
Have you increased the capacity, the speed, or, have you improved the Wi-Fi?
Not the-
Yes and no. You can't improve on what you don't have,
Source.
but you can improve from your point of your modem to whatever you have coming into the house. If you've got 30 megs, which I do, I can get 30 megs in that room over there now, which I do, rather than having it drop.
Okay.
Okay, so back to your
Yeah.
lights flashing.
Okay, so on the Telmex modems, keep in mind I'm saying modems. It's a modem, it's a router, it's a Wi-Fi, it's a switch, all in one device. So one of those devices is the DSL modem. There's a DSL light. When it is synchronizing with the other end, which is the process of forming the DSL connection, it will flash. And it should flash somewhat constant until it has synchronized, and then it's a solid light. Now, some of these modems, not all of them, in fact, not hardly any of the new ones, but some of the older ones, when the DSL light would flash to indicate activity across the connection.
See, that's kind of what it seemed to my vision that that's what it was doing, because I was sitting there on my phone sending texts and stuff and looking at the internet and it would flash.
Okay.
But the light was never solid.
So we'd have to verify which equipment you're using.
Yeah, it's always
Most of the
internet.
new equipment has a solid DSL light and it does not flash when it's connected,
But
when
the
it's
WLAN
synchronized.
flashes.
Well, then there's an internet light right beside it, and the internet light is what flashes when there's traffic. And so it just depends on what model equipment you're looking
So I
at.
don't think I fixed your problem.
Yeah.
So my question is, what's the difference between using your paperclip to reset and unplugging from the wall?
Oh, that's a great question. It's almost the same thing if you just press it. If you just press it, it's like turning it off and turning it on, and you can
Press what?
with the paperclip. Yeah, if you just hit the pole once, it'll reboot the whole thing.
Uh-huh.
It's like hitting an off and on switch. But to reset a modem like I was describing before, you would hold it in there for like a 10-second. In fact, I wouldn't even count. I just watch the lights. Because what'll happen is the lights will all light up and then they'll all shut down, and you'll know that it's gone through this procedure. But it is about a 10-second hold, and then you let go, and then what it's doing is it's setting up the modem with its original settings. So yeah, if you had a Wi-Fi name configured in there, which I don't recommend doing, but if you did, it would be gone. If you set a Wi-Fi password, which I don't necessarily recommend, it would be gone, and so it'd be back to that password on the sticker, things like that.
I don't recall that we've had this discussion before.
Okay.
Is this just something that's happened this year?
As far as modem maintenance?
Yes.
I think we've talked about it various times.
Really?
Yeah.
Because this is the first time ever that I've had my computer working, and I was working away, and all of a sudden it just froze. The picture was there, the sound wouldn't work, everything was there, and I scratched my head and I said, "What happened?" And so I went and unplugged everything, let it sit for 30 minutes, and plug it back in. Everything worked.
Okay, well, Bob, you know, that is the catch-all fix.
know.
I mean, that's the IT line, right? Is you call IT and they're describing the problem. It's like, well, okay, did you unplug it? Unplug it, wait 10 seconds, plug it back in, call me if it doesn't work.
Right.
I just
Mine-
tell them, please wait while I do this.
Mine loses the internet.
Oh, could you unplug it at the same time?
Mine loses the internet about every half hour or something like that. I have to.
Yeah, but you've got a strong
You're in Loma del
Wi-Fi
Mar.
signal.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, you just described your problem. You
So
just
it's
did.
a hiccup in the line.
Yeah. The real problem is you're in Loma del Mar.
Exactly.
Yeah, but it happens in San Pedro too, and that's
Oh.
I don't.
Cox internet.
I can't speak to that, but I happen to know that any of these Telmex issues in Loma del Mar are Loma del Mar problems because of the infrastructure.
But Judy, you know, yesterday they had 2 trucks at the corner of the park.
Scary.
So that must have been a real problem.
Well, see, they were supposed to be at Arbuckle's yesterday, because I reported it Friday, they said they would be there Monday, well, of course they won't.
We got 3 days, 3 business days.
Right. So they'll be there Wednesday when I won't be there.
How does fiber optic happen? Is that just a company decision
Yeah.
that if they can
Well, I left.
see it and make some money on it, they'll do it? If not.
Well, you know, fiber optics. This is one of the grievance that that our federal government has had with the long distance. Really, the state paid for it. Because back in the 90s, I do not believe they've installed any new fiber optics anywhere in town outside of putting in switches that didn't exist before in neighborhoods like the Bahia or in the Caracol, where they physically brought out a switch that never existed when they first installed the fiber optics so that they could bring those speeds to people's houses. But it feels like the way Telmex does things is they only do that when they have to. And a good example is how, like, people that are they're taking advantage of fiber optics, they take off for the summer and they turn off their internet and they come back and they find they can't get it again because their neighbor got it. And Telmex isn't running out to update that equipment for more capacity, whereas that's all it should take. It should just take pulling that switch out and putting another one in, or putting another switch right on top of it. They could endure that expense and they could offer it to their customers. They just don't. They wait till something breaks and then they replace it. In fact, unfortunately, they wait long past something broke before they replace it.
I gotta go. Adios.
You're off, Ross?
I've been off for a long time.
He's had all
I'm just verifying.
Well, you were about to start a new topic, and
I've got other topics.
yeah.
I read this morning that Google plans to put a badge of shame in Chrome for websites that don't load quick enough. So I think this is kind of a cool idea. If your web browser has some pre-knowledge of where you're going, and it says to you, this is a slow website in whatever form it is. Maybe it's a different color font, or maybe it's a literal badge that sits in the Chrome web browser. But just, I mean, being in Mexico, that's kind of cool. Why can't I bring, you've all done it. You've all hit the link more than once, right? You've all started the link again. I've had customers, I had to slap their hand and go, wait,
It's thinking.
stop hitting the button.
You'll never get there.
Yeah, all you're doing is restarting this slow process. So I think that'd be kind of cool to have a badge pop up and go, you're
Wait a
going
minute,
to a
when
low.
you keep at it, each time you press it, you restart?
Exactly.
Yeah.
No wonder.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, and we think we're boosting it.
Right? I mean, hopefully your web browser's sophisticated enough to go, oh, well, I already downloaded that, so I don't have to do it again. Because
Probably not.
that's what you're hoping for, is that you have cached things. Because you hit the button again, you are starting the process again. And hopefully your web browser is sophisticated enough to look at that web page and go, oh, well, I already got that picture, and I already got that text, and I already got the 1,000 advertisements that are going to be shown to you while you look at this website. To be fair, the advertisements are what is causing everything to be so much slower than it needs to be. But yeah, so look forward to that in the future. We'll have some indicator that we know we're going to a slow
That's
website.
with Chrome.
That's with Chrome.
Browser.
Thank you.
You know what I should tell you is because it's Disney Day and it's Windows 10 November 2019 major update day,
Oh, God, not again.
you guys should expect the internet to suck today. I would expect it to, or blow, either direction. It's not going to be moving, it'll be moving like molasses. There is going to be computers, Windows computers all over that are downloading without any control over it, this major update to this operating system. They used to number the updates, and so the most recent one you might have would be called 1903. 1903 is an interesting naming scheme. What it really means is 2019 May edition. You should have had these, should have been released in May. But what I discovered that I haven't been paying any attention to is I had at least 2 computers in my network that got that edition this morning.
May is 5.
Mine updated something.
You're right. It's March. I'm sorry. March.
I was
March.
gonna say, yes.
March is the word I was supposed to use. March was the month I was supposed to use. I'm sorry.
No wonder we're confused.
Thank you. Sorry about that.
Mine updated sometime in the last month.
Yes.
While I was not using it. It screwed everything up.
Yep. People have had all kinds of problems with it.
Okay.
And this 1909, which they are now rebranding November 2019, and I think this is how they're going to go forward. They're going to be calling these May 2019, March 2019.
Instead of the number.
Instead of the number now. It has been pre-released to a number of people for beta testing, and they've had all kinds of problems with it. Again, this is Windows 10. You don't get a choice whether you get these updates. If you have gotten the 1903, you will have options in your operating system to put off these updates a week at a time. So you could put it off for 7 days. But this thing is going to start showing up in your updates. And so we'll be talking about it as we go forward. I suspect anybody running Windows 10 at this table is not going to get this update in this next week, but it will be downloading into your computer and sitting waiting to be activated. And at some point in the future, it will update itself, and you're only going to be aware of it with a message